Hey everyone, I hope you all recovered from mono because we're jumping on into chapter 28, which is Monomer Liquid and Polymer Powder Nail Enhancements from your My Lady textbook. So this chapter is a bit of I don't want to say a lengthy one, as it's a little bit more confusing. They do throw out a lot of chemistry terms that I feel should have been addressed earlier in the nail chapter, so it does get a little disorganized. But bear with me, once you're able to read the theory and you get your hands working on either someone else or your mannequin hand, I don't even know how to say that, nail mannequin, you get the picture. It's the nail finger you're given, you can attach a nail to it and work on it. It's a really good way to practice these skills. But anyhow, make sure you read the publisher's note because I thought it was pretty interesting. And it talked about how nail enhancements based on mixing liquids together with powders are referred to as acrylic nails. It's going to surprise you to discover the real definition of acrylic, since for many years the word has actually been used incorrectly in the nail industry. The term acrylic actually refers to the entire family of thousands of different substances, all of which share an important closely related feature. Acrylics are used to make a wide range of products including contact lenses, cements for mending broken bones, plexiglass windows, and even makeup and other cosmetics. You can even get acrylic paints. So if you ever painted in, I don't know, like, high school or even college classes, they have acrylic paints, and those are plastic bags that are pretty much broken down, or a type of plastic that's wet. Surprisingly, all nail enhancement products are based almost entirely on ingredients that come from the acrylic family. For example, the ingredients in two-part monomer liquid and polymer enhancement systems belongs to a branch of acrylic families called methylcrylates. In other words, acrylic is a very general term for a large group of ingredients. Monomer liquid and polymer powder nail enhancements are based on methylcrylates. You can see some similarities in their spelling of the terms, which indicates they are from the same chemical family or group. To be as accurate and specific as possible, this book refers to the two-part monomer liquid and polymer powder enhancement system as monomer liquid and polymer powder. However, please keep in mind that other industry literature, product marketing, may continue to use the word acrylic. So if you hear the word acrylic, you want to read the label. It can be a bit challenging to get used to the words. So when you're working with monomers, know that, so when you are working with monomers and polymers in the classroom or the salon or wherever, just make sure you check out the label, because sometimes it's interesting to see what the actual product claims to do, and then when you read the back you're like, oh, this is what it is. So it does get a little confusing. I know it's pretty, I mean, my mind gets confused when I read this. Just know that acrylics are very common and it's very general, so it's kind of like saying, let me think of another example. If I say, you know, so the product contains organic chemicals, that could be a whole wide range of chemicals because there's a whole bunch. That's another way of saying it. Another type is like even like AHAs, that's a huge group of acids. So don't get gung-ho on that, but just typically know that if someone's referring to acrylics, they might be referring to monomers. Try to, you know, get more information because you want to make sure, is it really acrylic? Is it a nail tip? Is it UV gels? And also read the supplemental book from My Lady. So we jump in this chapter. You'll find that these monomer and polymer enhancements can be used in a wide variety of ways. They come in all kinds of colors, and the sky is the limit. So really your own mind is what's going to be your limitation to creativity for this chapter. So now for the science behind this. Monomer liquid and polymer powder nail enhancements, also known as sculptured nails, are created by combining a monomer liquid with a chemical monomer liquid, which is a chemical liquid, mixed with a polymer powder. Know that a polymer powder is going to be coming in white, clear, or pink, and many other colors. And this is the reason for the term liquid and powder, because your monomer is a liquid and your polymer is a powder. And when you mix the two, when you marry the two, you get the chemical that you want from the reaction. So when you look at monomer, let's break that down into mono. Mono means one, and mer stands for units. So a monomer is one unit called a molecule. Poly means many, so polymer means a substance formed by combining many small molecules, which are monomers, into very long chain-like structures. This is important to remember since you will hear these terms many times throughout your career. Know that monomer liquid and polymer powder can be applied in three basic ways. One of them is on the natural nail as they provide a protective overlay. You can not provide them, you can apply them over a nail tip. You can do them on a form to create a nail extension. So on the natural nail plate, on a nail tip, and on a form for an extension. Those are the three ways you can combine them. Know that when you're doing this, you want to use a specific brush. You want to use a natural hair and pointed round or oval application brush is best for applying these products. The brush is immersed in the monomer liquid. The natural hair bristles absorb and hold the monomer liquid like a reservoir, and the tip of the brush is then touched to the surface of the dry polymer powder. And as the monomer liquid absorbs the polymer powder, a small bead of product forms. This small bead is then carefully placed on the surface of the nail and molded into any shape with the brush. So the reason for a natural bristle brush is because that natural hair, right, they have a cuticle too. It's going to open, suck in that liquid, it'll hold that liquid better than, let's say, a plastic brush, because that wouldn't happen with the plastic one. So that's also another issue, I guess, for vegan clients. When they come in, they want something that's vegan, and if you're using a boar bristle brush, you have to be honest. And typically, I mean, in my own honest opinion, it would be really rare for someone who's really earthy to want a service like this, because it does use chemicals that a lot of them are not okay with. So typically your clients that want this are aware of the service. Also know that monomer liquid portion is usually one of 3 versions of monomer liquid used in the beauty industry. The types of monomer liquids you'll find in the industry are ethyl methacrylate, methyl methacrylate, and odorless monomer liquid. All 3 often contain other monomers that are used as customizing additives. The industry standards are that the ethyl methacrylate monomer liquid, EMA, and the odorless monomer liquid are the 2 ones that are typically used based on industry standards. Typically, MMA, methyl methacrylate, is not recommended for use on nails, as it is not legal according to the state board rules of some states. So you always want to check with your state board. Some state boards may allow MMA, others do not allow it, so you're going to be using ethyl methacrylate or odorless monomer liquid. Know that it may seem strange that polymer powder is also made mostly from the ethyl methacrylate monomer liquids. The polymer powder is made using polymerization, which is also known as curing or hardening, a chemical reaction that creates polymers. Know that in this process, trillions of monomers are linked together to create long chains. These long chains create the tiny round beads of polymer powder used to create certain types of nail enhancements. Also know that when you're producing this, the production of polymer powder, the powder forms into tiny round beads of slight varying sizes. The beads are then poured through a series of special screens to sort the beads by size. The ones that are the right size are separated and then mixed with other special additives and colorants. The final mixture is packaged and sold as polymer powder. It is a surprisingly high-tech process that requires very specific manufacturing equipment, lots of quality control, and scientific know how to do it right. And the reason why I read this too is that it gives us some appreciation, because everyone thinks, oh, this is magical, if it comes in a great box. But know that every single powder that you get is made through this process. It doesn't matter if the product is cheap and very genuine, or if the product has the most beautiful design and gives you a million claims that don't really amount to anything scientific. But it's a really fun product to watch. I've never had any appreciation for this until I saw like one video on how like makeup was made, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty neat. Like, that's really satisfying to watch. There is a huge scientific process that goes through this procedure of making this. And you also have special additives that can, potentially increase the chemistry behind it or have some kind of effect. It's not going to change the science. You still have to use the same technique, but it will do some special stuff. And know that the special additives that are added into both the liquid and the powder will ensure a complete set or cure, maximum durability, color stability, and shelf life, among other things. Know that it's these custom additives that make the products work and behave slightly differently. Know that polymer powders are usually blended with pigments and colorants to create a wide range of shades, including pinks, whites, and milky translucent shades, as well as reds, blues, greens, purples, yellows, oranges, browns, and even jet black, and all kinds of other colors. Know that when liquid is picked up by a brush and mixed with the powder, the bead that forms on the end of the brush quickly begins to harden. It is put into place with other beads and shaped into place as they harden. And know that in order for this process to begin, the monomers and polymers require special additives called catalysts. Catalysts are going to be things that speed up the chemical reaction. So if you remember back to basic biology, you have your enzyme and substrate, and then your catalyst that binds to it will speed up that reaction. So catalysts are added to the monomer liquid and used to control the set or curing time. Also know that the initiators start a chain reaction that leads to the creation of very long polymer chains. Also know that creating polymers can be thought of as a chain reaction, which is also known as a polymerization reaction, a process that joins together monomers to create very long polymer chains. Much like many dominoes, when their edges are lined up, tap the first domino, it hits the next one, so on. That's how a polymer forms. So if you imagine me having dominoes, if I knock one over, it's going to create a chain reaction. That's what it's like when you mix this. That's what's happening. Once the monomers join together, they create a polymer and do not detach from each other easily. The initiator that is added to the polymer powder is called benzoyl peroxide, BPO. It's the same ingredient that's also used in over-the-counter skincare. I typically don't recommend benzoyl peroxide from the face because it's very caustic, it dries the skin out. If you have not heard my horror story, be sure to check out my video on when I tried a popular acne brand back in the day and it left me with second-degree chemical burns. So they do have a very strong drying action, and if you're not careful, you can actually dry out the skin on the client. So there's much less BPO in nail products and powders than in acne treatments. Know that diverse nail enhancement products often use different amounts of BPO since the polymers are designed to work specifically with a certain monomer liquid. Some monomer liquids require more BPO to properly cure than others. This is why it's very important to use polymer powder that was designed for monomer liquid that you are using. Using the wrong powder can create nail enhancements that are not properly cured and may lead to surface breakdown or could increase the risk of your clients developing skin irritation or sensitivity. So it's kind of like back to the perm chapter when we have that one, it was the, what perm was that? Not exotherm, acid balance perm, where you mix the additive and that can make clients more sensitive. This can also cause the same thing if you use the wrong type of powder on the client. And there's a ton of different monomer powder and liquid systems. You got to find the one that you like best and stick with it. If you have clients that are sensitive, you want to consider probably getting one that's made for that. So always read the instructions. And if this confuses you, because I know it is a confusing chapter, I do apologize. I'm also kind of like half asleep. Know that you want to read the book Nail Structure and Product Chemistry, 2nd edition by Douglas D. Schoon, published by My Lady. That's a really good supplement to this chapter because it really breaks down and gives you a lot of better visuals behind how these products work. So now we also have to talk about our monomer liquid and polymer powder nail enhancement supplies. Just like any other product we have, we need supplies. So our monomer liquid, this is going to be combined with our polymer powder to form the sculptured nail. The amount of monomer liquid and polymer powder used to create a bead is called the mix ratio. So if you think about a ratio is like a 1-to-1. So for example, hair color, most lines are 1 part developer, 1 part colorant, 1-to-1 ratio. Others may have a 1-to-2 ratio, 1 part color, 2 parts developer. Use the similar thinking for this chapter. So you'll have different beads, your dry bead, medium bead, and wet bead. Your dry bead is going to be 1 part monomer liquid and 1 part polymer powder. Your medium bead is going to be 1.5 parts monomer liquid to 1 part polymer powder. 2 parts monomer liquid and 1 part polymer powder is going to be a wet bead. So know that the mix ratio typically ensures proper set and maximum durability of the nail enhancement. This mixture functions in similar ways as other more familiar mixtures. For example, if too much flour is added to a cookie, it'll become dry. If more liquids are added to the cookie mix, the cookies become wet, they break apart. So kind of use that when you're thinking about how much to add. Also know that if too much powder is picked up in the bead, the enhancement will cure incorrectly and may become brittle or discolored. And if too little powder is used, the nail enhancement becomes weak and clients will be at greater risk of developing skin irritation and sensitivity. So know that with your powder is available in white, clear, natural, pink, and many other colors. The color you choose will depend upon the nail enhancement method you are using. Next, just like our previous nail tips, we have a nail dehydrator. The nail dehydrator removes surface moisture and tiny amounts of oil that are left on the nail plate, both of which will block your adhesion, especially the oil. So it should be applied liberally to the natural nail plate. Only you don't want to get skin contact. Try to avoid skin contact because it can dry out the skin and be irritating. Next is nail primer, and there's many types of nail primers available today. In the past, they used acid-based nail primers called methacrylic acid. It was widely used to help adhere enhancements to the natural nail. And since acid-based nail primer is corrosive to the skin and potentially dangerous to the eyes, acid-free non-acid primers were developed. Also know that manufacturers' instructions for using monomer liquid and polymer powder nail enhancement products will vary drastically, so it's important to always read the instructions. Also know that I give you just another reminder to practice proper hand washing, especially in this time. It's really important. So acid-free and non-acid primers are the types of primers that are most often used today. They work as well or better than acid-based nail primers, and they have the added advantage of not being corrosive to the skin and eyes. Always read the MSDS if you're unsure which one you're using. For acid nail primers, use a tiny applicator brush. Insert the brush into the nail primer, touch the brush tip to the edge of the bottle's neck to release the excess primer back into the bottle. Keep the brush dry and use a light dotting action carefully. Dab the brush tip to the center of the properly prepared natural nail. The acid-based primer will spread out and cover the nail plate. Do not use too much product. It will run onto the skin and cause burns or injuries. Also know that for non-acid and acid-free primers, use the applicator brush as well. Insert the brush into the nail primer, wipe excess product from the brush. Using a slightly damp brush, completely cover the natural nail plate with the primer. Don't use too much. It can also rub on the skin, causing irritation or sensitivity. The brush should hold enough product to treat 2 or 3 nails. Be sure the entire nail plate is covered. So what that means that don't oversaturate the brush thinking you're going to cover all nails. Typically you want to cover about 2 or 3. It's better to dip in again in your dapping dish, add a little bit more, and then pour if you need to. That comes with time and experience. This is something you'll learn. You're going to mess up at first. That's normal, and then you'll learn eventually. This is something I struggled with personally and a lot of other students. Next, you have your abrasives, which are going to be your files. You have the medium grit, which is 180 to 240 for natural nail preparation and initial shaping. And you want to choose a medium grit for smoothing and a fine buffer for 350 grit or higher for final buffing. A 3-way buffer is used to create high shine on the enhancements when no polish is worn. If you avoid putting the product on too thickly, a 180 grit is usually enough to shape the natural nail enhancements. Avoid using coarser, lower grit abrasives or aggressive techniques on freshly applied enhancement products because they can damage freshly created nail enhancements. And I also apologize for any noise. When you live in an Italian household, number one, getting privacy is near impossible, and also getting a soundproof door is an investment that I need to make in the future. So, next are nail forms. Nail forms are placed under the free edge and used to extend the nail enhancements beyond the fingertip for additional length. Know that they're made of paper or mylar and coated with adhesive backs and made of pre-shaped plastic or aluminum. These nail forms are going to be your traditional things you'll see people having their nail on. They kind of look like a sci-fi foily thing. All these forms are disposable except the plastic and aluminum forms that can be properly cleaned and disinfected. Also read your caution box that acid-based nail primers are very effective but can cause serious and sometimes irreversible damage to the skin and eyes. Never use acid-based nail primers or any other corrosive material without wearing protective gloves and safety eyewear. So, nail tips are also used. These are preformed nail extensions made from ABS or tenite acetate plastic and are available in a wide variety of shapes, styles, colors, including natural, white, and clear. Your dapping dish, which is going to be a clear, usually glass little dish, is where the monomer liquid and polymer powder are each poured into a special holder. The dishes must have a narrow opening to minimize evaporation of the monomer liquid into the air. Do not use open mouth jars or other containers with large openings. These type of containers will dramatically increase evaporation of the liquid and can allow the product to be contaminated with dust or other debris. DAP dishes must be covered with a tight-fitting lid when not in use, because if you leave your DAP dish open, toss the whole thing. I've seen whole horror stories where people leave it open, it evaporates too quickly, and you get a big nasty load of just plastic in there. Know that each time the brush is dipped into the DAP dish, the remaining monomer liquid is contaminated with small amounts of polymer powder, so never pour the unused portion of monomer liquid back into the original container, or you'll create a nasty reaction and you can cause your product to lose effectiveness. So if you need to, wipe your DAP dish clean with acetone if necessary before storing in a dust-free location. Also know that the best way to dispose of a small amount of small amounts of monomer liquid is to mix them with small amounts of powder designed to cure them. They should never be disposed of in the trash or down the drain. Tiny amounts left in a DAP dish can be wiped out in a paper towel and disposed of in a metal trash bin with a closing lid. So what I'll do here, I know we're getting to that longer mark, is take your 5-minute break now, try to rewatch some of this or digest some of this information. When I come back, I'll start on the nail brush, safety eyewear, dust masks, all that stuff, and we'll go from there.